Blazers big man Robert Williams, the next big on the move, and where could he be headed? It looks like one team is emerging as the most likely landing spot for Williams. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. Only about 20% of you watching this are actually subscribed. So the other 80%, hit the subscribe button. We're going to keep you up to date on all things trade rumors heading into the February 6th trade deadline. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. Donnie, the NBA's big man market, it is robust this year. Robert Williams, if he could stay healthy, would have to be one of the most talented options out there on the market. What are you seeing from him, and what do you think, in this case, the Houston Rockets as a potential landing spot? What do you think that could look like?
Yeah, I think that would look really good with him over there in Houston. I think they could use another big, and I think that he's one of my favorite theoretical players because he's never really healthy, hasn't really shown the ability to be healthy for a prolonged period throughout his career. But still, even this year when he's out there, he's looked good in spurts, playing a limited amount of minutes, limited amount of games. But I think that he is somebody that if he's out there could provide value to whatever team he's given to, and rim protection, bounciness, lob threat, just interior defense that's definitely needed as we go up against some of these teams, that rely on bigs in the West. And I think that's one of the main reasons why there seems to be a lot of buyers on the market for bigs. And I think that he is one of the main guys that's out there that, again, theoretically could fit onto a number of teams and provide value.
Yeah, if, of course, the Blazers are willing to move on from him. Now, Brett Siegel of Clutch Points stressed that Robert Williams is not someone the Blazers are necessarily trying to move, but they'll certainly take calls on him. But Williams has emerged as a prime trade candidate for the Houston Rockets. They're looking to improve their front court next to Alperen Sengun. I thought next to was interesting. Considering they've got Jabari Smith Jr., but obviously he's been dealing with an injury. But next to Alperen Sengun, they want to have the option to run two big lineups out there. They already have Steven Adams behind Sengun. Yeah. So I think that could be a really interesting strategy. Not that they would run that in every single situation, but to have the opportunity to play Williams and Sengun. And look, if anybody's going to get the best out of Williams, it's Ime Udoka, his former coach with the Boston Celtics, and the two were recently seen talking after the after Houston's recent game with the Blazers. So maybe there's a little bit of smoke here to this fire.
Yeah, I think, wasn't he also his coach in Boston too for a while there?
Yeah. His coach in Boston.
Yeah, maybe they have a prior relationship to that. I mean, they could have been talking about where they're going to go, eat dinner. Maybe they were going to link up after. Who knows what they were actually talking about there. But, with Jabari being out, I can see why they would potentially be on the market for another big. It's interesting if the idea, though, is to try to go double big because, I think it may work with Rob because he's a little bit more athletic than some of the other bigs that they have on the roster, like Steven Adams. Obviously, he's pretty athletic. Dude's huge. He's a massive beast, but he's not the quickest guy down the court.
Right.
So that's more or less what I'm talking about. Same sometimes can apply to Sengun as well, although he can beat you down if he's got the ball and he's handling it similar to, he's basically what I call him his baby Jokic. So I like Sengun a lot. But yeah, I think that Rob would fit pretty good, and I think that they should be in on him if they can. But it's interesting that the Blazers potentially are not looking to move him. Like, they'll take calls, but they're not trying to move him. I think that's such a weird Blazers thing. Yeah, like it almost sounds like spin. I'm not sure that they should be trying to do that because he's one of their most coveted assets on that roster. So I'm not sure what the idea is with that.
Yeah, I think that's just the Blazers trying to drive the price up. And speaking of which, we'll take a look at what a trade could look like in just a moment. But first, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. You guys can use the link in the description down below to go play Prize Picks. Use our promo code Bulletin, and you get a guaranteed $50 when you play $5. Super fun to play daily fantasy sports. And we always appreciate it when you support the companies that help support us, help us keep the lights on our growing channel here. But let's take a look at some of the plays for tonight. There's a few different things out here. I love Taco Tuesday, which it is right now. Limited time to get this one in, but Tyler Hero, 17.5 points. I think you got to smash more on that.
That's easy. Yeah, you're taking that.
It's the discounted line for Tyler Hero. Let's take a look. I like these goblins are fun too.
Yeah.
Make the play a little bit easier.
There's the easy one right there. We were just talking about Jokic. You got to take the real one. He's easily getting 22.5 rebounds and assists.
All right, let's go for it. Let's go for that, especially against Philly with no Joel Embiid. My only question is, will he play long enough? Because, oh my goodness, Philly might be tanking at this point. And then what about Jordan Poole against our Lakers? He's the kind of guy to have a blow-up game against, and he's actually played pretty well this season, but he's the kind of guy to have a blow-up game against the Lakers, particularly with the Lakers backcourt struggling a bit to contain people. Do we want to say that he can get more than 20.5 points?
I think it's possible, but I don't know. I think it's right on the line. I'd personally go to that Jimmy line. I think that 26 points, rebounds, assists, unless he just mails it in, I think that's a really low bar.
He might mail it in. You just never know. But all right, let's go for it. Let's roll the dice. 25.5 points, rebounds, and assists for Jimmy Butler. Yes, if he is playing to the best of his ability, he should be able to crush that. If you guys want to get in on it, use that promo code Bulletin and use the link in the description down below to go play Prize Picks. All right, let's talk about what a trade could look like here for Robert Williams, how the Houston Rockets would put this together. Again, I don't doubt at all that Ime Udoka would love to have Robert Williams back in the fold, back on his roster after having him with the Celtics. When we take a look at his contract, pretty reasonable contract for a talented big man, again, when he's healthy, but $12.4 million this season, $13.2 million next season. So not the most difficult salary to go get to. I'd look at Matisse Thybulle too. I know he hasn't played this season, but
yeah,
that's an interesting one as well for somebody to go after, maybe Dallas or something like that. But then we look at Houston. What are you trading away to potentially get him? That's where it gets a little bit tricky. Could you do something around, say, Jeff Green, and then a smaller contract, and then off you go? Is that something, or should they keep the veteran leadership of Jeff Green?
Yeah, I think there's value in that. They've got some vets, but not a ton, I guess. But yeah, I think there's value in that. I do think that if this deal is done, Portland's going to for sure want an expiring deal. The good news is they've got a few of them on their team. It's just a little bit tricky as to who those players are. But Jeff, sure, he's not. Last I saw, he's not playing a lot this year.
Yeah, so, I mean, let's say, all right, he is in an expiring contract, so let's go Jeff Green. We're going to send Robert Williams over here to Houston. Now, the one thing that's interesting here, and because of the cap scenario, you could just do something there around draft capital. The other thing to keep in mind, as it says here on Spot Track, is Houston actually has their non-taxpayer MLE, so they could even use that to just straight absorb the salary.
Okay.
Which would be interesting, right? Because in that case, they don't even have to send back Jeff Green. So now I'd imagine Houston would probably want to send back some salary rather than just eating all of that money. But that's also a possibility here. We could remove Jeff Green from this, and let's see.
Ask for him. That's crazy.
I mean, you'd have to send draft capital or something would have to go back. But let's say the Houston Rockets send. And by the way, when we're looking at this, so far what the market has told us, it's that these kind of guys like Robert Williams, they go for second-round picks. They don't go for first. So let's throw in a couple of seconds, and that's actually a deal that works. Technically, the Blazers wouldn't have to take back any salary. They could trade Robert Williams into the taxpayer MLE or the non-taxpayer MLE that the Rockets have. This is a new rule under the new CBA. You can use your mid-level exception as a trade exception. The Houston Rockets could do that. The Blazers could take back $0, just get a couple of picks, and there you have it.
Yeah, I like that new wrinkle. It's kind of interesting. This is the first time I've seen it used like legitimately. So I think that's pretty interesting for sure. And what's better than expiring salary is no salary. So I think that's a win-win on both sides. And for Rob, I think coming here, he has the chance to get fully healthy, get ready for a playoff run, and potentially be able to make a big impact on this team for the time being. And I don't think he's going to have an outsized role, of course. While I do think they could use another rotation big if they need that, but they do already have 3 when everybody's healthy at least. So I don't know that he'll have an outsized role, but just the option of playing him out there, potentially going to those 2 big looks like they were talking about, and the defensive upside you could have by putting him in your front court, I think that's massive.
Well, and I look at this, Donnie, I look at right now Houston, they're leading the NBA in offensive rebounds, and it's not particularly close.
It's because Steven Adams grabs 10 a game.
Because Steven Adams is just a monster there. But here's the thing. Let's say Steven Adams turns an ankle, something like that, right? Now you can perpetuate that strength by having Robert Williams there. You're already crushing teams on the offensive glass, but your superpower on the season has been your rebounding. And if if something happens to one of your bigs, suddenly that superpower diminishes just a little bit. It makes you less dangerous as a team. You go get a guy like Steven Adams or like Robert Williams, and while he's got injury issues himself, you make it the more likely that you're able to withstand an injury and still be a dangerous team on the glass and still be able to do what it is that makes the Houston Rockets right now. I believe they're the number 2 seed. Yes, the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. So I kind of like that. You're taking your strength and you're making sure that's going to remain your strength.
Yeah, you're able to fortify what your team does well. Where do the Rockets rank in offense and defense?
So offensive rating, they have not been. They're not the most efficient offensive team.
Yeah, I know that one. They're a defensive team for sure.
Right, but they're not terrible. They're not terrible. I mean, they're actually 10th in the NBA in offensive rating, but
good.
Part of that is because they're so good at second chance opportunities because they get so many offensive rebounds. Their defensive rating, they're one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. Right now they're 4th, but really in like a 3-way tie with the Clippers, the Magic, they're right there 2 through 4. So they're a very, very good defensive team. And because they're not a strong shooting team, their field goal percentage, not good. If you go look at Houston, where is Houston? Got to go all the way down. Ooh. There they are, 23rd in field goal percentage. So they're not a very efficient team shooting the basketball, but they make up for it by being just absolute monsters on the offensive glass. And I think the key here, too, is it's not just they miss a lot of shots because that can skew things. When we take out volume and we just look at offensive rebound percentage, they're still number 1 in the NBA.
Yeah. And it's just, they got Thompson crashing like crazy. They got several guys that go to the glass and they're hyper athletic too. So that's part of the reason why they've been able to make such a huge jump here to be one of the top teams in the West. And, based statistically, they profile as a team that should be a contender this year. So then with that being the case, is Robert the all-in move that they would need if they view themselves as a team that's that good as a contender? Like, no, they're second seed in the West. Is that the move that they need, or is there a bigger move that they could potentially make? Now, this isn't the only move they can make because theoretically they'd be absorbing him into salary, which means they could still flip other pieces and do other stuff.
Sure.
But is he what they're looking for specifically?
Yes and no. And it's yes in they've told everyone that they don't want to make the big superstar move right now, that they want to keep their young core. They want to let their young core develop.
I don't blame
all that. And that's all well and good
here. So I don't blame them.
Right, exactly. So I don't blame them for doing that. So is this the all-in move? This is probably the most realistic move where you're not touching a bunch of future assets. You're giving up some second-round picks or something. Maybe you're giving up Jeff Green. Maybe you're just giving up your MLE, whatever it's going to be. You're not touching serious rotation players. You're not touching significant future assets. You're not touching those Phoenix picks that you've got for the future. So you're making a move that can help you right now, but this is not the all-in, oh my gosh, the Rockets are going for it type move either. That move still could come, but I still think the Rockets want to let their team grow another season organically, unless, of course, the right deal just falls into their laps. And then I think they're going to be opportunistic if Kevin Durant starts to fall off, Bradley Beal starts to fall off. They're going to go to the Suns and they're going to say, hey, we've got all your future picks, or we've got a bunch of your future picks. You guys need to rebuild. Hard to do that when you don't have your picks. Let's talk Devin Booker. And
are they not already doing that? Like,
I think they're already doing it, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna push hard for something like that in a year or two. And by that point, they want to have their team really off and running. And it doesn't mean it has to be Devin Booker. It might be somebody else they could use that might be interested in shorting the future of the Phoenix Suns. But I think that is the ultimate plan of the Houston Rockets. Make a more minor move like a Robert Williams move right now, make some noise in the postseason. You're defending well enough. Who knows? Maybe you make it all the way to the NBA Finals. It's not out of the question for this team. But the real move is you let things build up for a year or two, then you go after the star.
Yeah. Well, say they were to make a trade right now. What's that player look like, and why is it Bradley Beal?
Why is it Bradley Beal? When I look at Bradley Beal, I think there is no team that should be in on Bradley Beal. Like the Rockets.
Well, there's not a team that should be less in on him because the pick situation. You don't want to make Phoenix fit better or be better or anything like that. So that was more or less why I threw that out there. But yeah, you're right.
It should not be the Houston Rockets in on Bradley Beal. They should be hoping he stays on that roster for a long, long time. Uh, yeah, I mean, if they were to go after somebody this year, it would need to be a younger player, a player that could be part of their future. If they were to like really go after a
Mhm.
significant piece, who that would be, I don't know. Because most of those guys simply aren't available out there on the market. Like, and on top of that, how much would you have to stack up? Like, are you going to go
Yeah.
after Zach Levine? I mean,
Yeah.
there's just a lot of salary you have to stack up to try to get there.
I'm thinking the best option if they were to do it is BI, and I'm not sure that
Yeah.
either puts them over the top. So maybe you're right. They shouldn't try to do anything right now.
Yeah. I mean, if you go get Brandon, are they a Brandon Ingram away from an NBA championship?
Brandon Ingram and Robert Williams.
Maybe. I mean, I don't
They feel
hate
like it seems
that.
like they could get there, but I wouldn't bet on it. I don't know.
Yeah. How much do you trust Brandon Ingram come playoff time?
Uh, it's tricky. It's tricky. I'd have to look at his playoff stats to be honest, but theoretically, I think he'd fit pretty good here. He likes to go to the tough shots, and he's a tough shot taker and maker. So
Yeah.
I think that he should be okay in a playoff situation, especially on a team like this where they can get him open. There's a lot of high motor guys on this team. They'll get a lot of second chance points. He just needs to be an athlete out there, and I think that he'll be okay. My worry with him is, is he going to want the ball too much? Is he going to slow down the pace too much? Is he going to be able to get back to being a defensive player as well to the degree he was earlier in his career when he had less of an offensive burden? Those are the things I would be concerned about with him.
Yeah, I agree on all of those. Do you want to introduce that into your lineup right now? I don't know. It feels like Houston is pretty happy with what they've got, and they'd make some more minor moves around the edges rather than go all in on BI right now.
Yeah.
But Houston, you know what? They're in a great spot. They've got future draft capital. They've got young talent. They've got, I mean, they're the number 2 seed in the West right now. They've got a decent shot at making it out of the West and getting all the way to the NBA Finals this year. So they're in a great position, and I think they just want to make sure they don't do anything to short circuit that and create problems for themselves by trying to go all in too early. But you never know if the right deal falls in their laps. But a more minor move like for Robert Williams, I think it makes a lot of sense. And when you look at the numbers, they can definitely get there. But everybody, give me your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you think Robert Williams is the guy the Blazers should trade? And should the Houston Rockets be the buyers in that situation? And don't forget to subscribe right here to the channel. Go check out our live video from yesterday. We broke down a bunch of the latest trade news around the NBA.